This is Newsroom. Hello, welcome from Johannesburg, here in South Africa. I'm Eben Jansen. The show, of course, live, as always, and broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. Don't forget, we're streaming live on YouTube right now, and the whole show is also available on demand on our YouTube channel. Now, today, we look at elections in Burundi, with the country seemingly teetering on the brink of civil war. We'll get an update from there now. Don't forget, you can also interact with us by answering the question on screen right now. Send your response to @SABC Newsroom. There it is. Should Burundi's elections go ahead today? Now, it started already, but we're asking you, should it go ahead? What do you think? Well, we'll run your responses a little bit later in the show. The best ones we'll put up full screen. Also, but later, the Nkandla report moves to Pietermaritzburg. We look at Muhammadu Buhari's meeting with Barack Obama in the US. And we close with African exhibitions and the launch of a new junior motorbike racing series here in South Africa. But first, let's get the day's news from Anindoma.
Good morning, I'm Anindoma. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. In Burundi, voting has started in the controversial election in which President Pierre Nkurunziza is seeking a third term. Polls opened early this morning and are expected to close at 7 tonight. The Electoral Commission expects a high turnout from the 3.8 million registered voters. This despite explosions and gunfire heard overnight in the capital, Bujumbura. Reports suggest that at least 2 people have died in the recent pre-election violence. Meanwhile, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon has called on the Burundian government to strive for a peaceful atmosphere in today's election. In a statement, Ban urged all parties to refrain from any acts of violence that could compromise the stability of Burundi and the region. Back home, Police Minister Nathi Nhleko will brief Parliament's ad hoc committee on Nkandla at the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Legislature in Pietermaritzburg today. This will be followed by a site visit conducted by the committee to the President's private residence tomorrow. The Nkandla ad hoc committee was established to consider the Nhleko report, which found that President Zuma is not liable to pay back any money used on non-security upgrades at his home. The United States has welcomed a new beginning in the diplomatic relations with Cuba. This after Havana opened an embassy in Washington for the first time in more than half a century. Leaders of the two states have, however, warned that restoring full ties would be a complex process.
Make no mistake, the process of fully normalizing relations between the United States and Cuba will go on. It may be long and complex, but along the way, we are sure to encounter a bump here and there, and moments even of frustration.
There are profound differences between Cuba and the United States with regard to our views about the exercise of human rights by all persons all over the world.
FIFA will set up a new task force to propose reforms aimed at cleaning itself up, a move critics said was an adequate response to the worst crisis in the 111-year history of soccer's governing body. The suggested reforms would include integrity checks for the all-powerful 25-member executive committee, term limits for top officials and public disclosure of their earnings. FIFA President Sepp Blatter announced yesterday that an elective conference for soccer's top position will take place in February the 26th next year. And the Proteas won the toss and elected to bat first on the first day of their test against Bangladesh in Chittagong. The most recent score there is 129 for 1. Well, remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just search for Newsroom. You can also follow us on Twitter @SABC Newsroom. Eben, over to you.
Thank you very much, Janine. Now, Burundi is forging ahead with controversial presidential elections. Polls opened this morning at 6 a.m. amid unrest over incumbent President Pierre Nkurunziza's bid for a third term in office. More than 70 people have lost their lives in the unrest that followed since April. Last-ditch peace talks over the weekend aimed at bringing peace did not take place after the government pulled out. 3 candidates, including 2 former presidents, announced their withdrawal from the presidential race, predicting the contest in this rest of Africa nation will not be free and fair. Burundi is a small landlocked country, but crisis in the region historically spreads quickly to other countries like Rwanda, Uganda, and especially the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Now, for the latest, we are joined from the Burundian capital, Bujumbura, by our very own contributing editor, Vuyo Mvoko. Very good morning to you, Vuyo. Thanks for joining us.
Well, good morning, Eben, from a rather warm Bujumbura.
It looks warm. The mood on the street, is it warm as well? Is it heated? We've heard early reports that voting started. There have been skirmishes and the like. What is your view?
Well, it wasn't a good start if last night is anything to go by. I mean, shortly after I came off air, which was around 10 in the evening, there were bombings and explosions which continued for about an hour. They sounded quite a bit distant from where we are, which is where I did the last crossing last night. But you could hear them from a distance, and you could hear that it wasn't small bombs or explosions. And they continued, as I say, for about an hour, after which they, of course, died. So the rest of the night was peaceful, and up until now we still haven't heard what actually happened, what was happening, and who may have been responsible, and whether anyone died during those explosions. But fast forward to this morning. Yes, indeed, the polling stations opened early, most of them, we are told, but we are yet one of our crews. We have 2 crews here. One has already gone out there to actually get a sense of what is going on and to bring us some footage. But at the moment, from what the authorities are saying, voting has started in earnest and everything is going according to plan as things stand. Yeben?
The centres where voting is taking place, we know there have been wide calls for the polls to be boycotted. Are you seeing busy polls? Are there queues, that sort of thing, especially in the capital?
Well, people are seemingly unanimous in saying here in Bujumbura, people tend to go to the polling stations late morning, then right through till the evening when the polling stations close. So the slow trickling in of numbers should not be read to be a sign, perhaps, that people are not going to go in large numbers. And from what the chairperson of the Electoral Commission told us yesterday, he expects a very high poll of way above 70% of the voting population. For that is certainly what they got in the parliamentary elections that took place last month. And he believes that given the fact that the atmosphere at the time was less conducive to an election than is the case at the moment, he reckons there will be a much higher poll. You will recall that in the run-up to the parliamentary elections, there were, incidents of violence, and there were sporadic incidents of intimidation as well. That election took place closely after certain radio stations were closed down. Certain internet outlets were also closed down. So the atmosphere at the time wasn't, he reckoned, as conducive as it is now, which is the reason he thinks there will be a much higher turnout this time around. Yeben.
Vuyo, the president himself, he's expected to cast his vote shortly, or has he done? And will there be lots of fanfare and the like around him, one would think?
Well, he will be casting his vote any minute from now. It is hoped that within the next half an hour or so, but it will not be here in Bujumbura, the capital city. He will be doing so in the rural areas about 2 hours or so, or just over 2 hours from now, and that is when he will be voting.
I want to talk about a little bit wider about the region, stability in the region. If we read reports coming out of the U.S. and from the UN, it says that this election will be the sort of the fire that will light the powder keg in the Great Lakes region. How do you view that, and do we expect this to see more violence in the Great Lakes?
Look, there's no doubt about the fact that the tensions are high between the governing party of President Pierre Nkurunziza and the rest of the opposition. But he has been buoyed by last month's parliamentary elections, where his party got 77% of the vote, and the small parties then shared the rest. However, we did have quite a lengthy discussion yesterday with the chairman of the party, and the chairman of Burundi's governing party was quite was extending an olive branch, saying that they do hope after the elections, they hope to go back to members of their own party who had deserted their party precisely because they couldn't agree with the move to get President Pierre Nkurunziza to contest the election again. He said, the chairman of the party, that is, they will be going back to their members who took that position to say to them, all is forgotten, all has been forgiven, come back to your party. He did say also that they remain committed to a government of national unity, as they have been implored by the East Africa community. Remember, there's a process that has been initiated by the East Africa community of nations who have asked Burundi's political parties to form something akin to a government of national unity. In other words, there shouldn't be a winner takes all. The ruling party did recommit yesterday to that process, saying they will be going back to the political parties to urge them to come on board. However, there was a rider. They did say that it will be parties that will have gotten at least 5% of the vote. And when I put that to the leader of the biggest official, of the biggest opposition party yesterday, he said that was actually going to throw a spanner in the works, for it points to what he has been saying all along, that the ruling party is actually not keen on a government of national unity. But when I put to him what the ruling party had said, which was that opposition parties want to get through a negotiated settlement what they cannot get through the poll, he said, no, that is not the fact. The fact of the matter, the leader of the opposition said, was that they didn't have a free and fair atmosphere in the run-up to the election, so they cannot therefore be expected to perform miracles. For the government was using a state apparatus to actually muzzle the opposition and to make it impossible for them to actually canvass openly and freely. Yeben.
Vuyo, thank you very much for that update. Vuyo Mvoka, contributing editor, is in Bujumbura, the capital, of course, of Burundi. He will be giving us on-the-hour updates pretty much throughout the rest of the day as to what is happening there. Of course, Burundian President Pierre Nkurunziza is standing for a third consecutive term in elections that now have been denounced by his opponents as unconstitutional. Also, two former presidents have pulled out of the election, saying that they don't expect it to be free and fair. What are you saying about it? These are some of your views that we've picked off social media. With regards to Fumwa says, as the sun rises over the hills of the president's hometown, calm, placid atmosphere, people working fields, small queue of people voting. Of course, he's talking about the Burundian elections. Malaika Nyanzi says, the Burundi elections, the Burundi cry has me on the edge of my seat. Anything can happen. I would say it pretty much has the entire continent on the edge of its seat today. Anything can happen, and of course, as you know, it usually does. Darren says, if polls open with gunfire, then how do you expect to have a free and fair election at the end of the day? Well, Darren, we asked the question, should it have gone ahead? Should the elections have even started today, despite all the calls for it to be postponed to a later stage? At SABC Newsroom is where you can send us your comment, of course. Now, Moses says, Burundi 2015, here comes the anticipated day. Heavy gunfire and explosions seems to be the morning alarm. Now, to get an analysis of the latest developments, we are joined in the studio by a senior researcher on foreign policy from the South African Institute of International Affairs, Dr. Chirimo Hengari. A very good morning to you, Doctor. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on your show.
You've just seen, we're live in Bujumbura. There's sporadic gunfire, a couple of explosions overnight. How do you view the election that's going ahead right now?
Well, over the past 6 months, if I may say, Burundi has been on the verge of a full-scale crisis. There has been some request on the part of the East African community to postpone the elections indefinitely in order to allow for a process that will deal with some of the sticking points, including a third term for Pierre Nkurunziza. But clearly, the party in power, the Council for the Defense of Democracy, the ruling party has refused that type of dialogue. It went to the courts and got a position that favored a third term for Pierre Nkurunziza. So what we have today is really the culmination of a long process of negotiations that did not really result in any amicable solution.
The Council for the Defense of Democracy, it's almost ironic, isn't it?
It is indeed ironic because that's the party of Pierre Nkurunziza who came into power in 2006.
I want to ask you about Pierre Nkurunziza, the man himself. How do you view him and how do you think he'll be viewed by the rest of the continent after this election?
Well, it is quite unfortunate that notwithstanding protestations from the African Union, not to proceed with the elections and also heavy pressure from the European Union, in particular Belgium, which withdrew its aid to Burundi. Pierre Nkurunziza has decided to continue with the presidential election that is really flawed, and one can only speculate about the consequences of this type of election. Already, as we are talking now, there has been violence this morning prior to the opening of the ballot boxes. There is also on the border with Rwanda sporadic clashes between forces loyal to Pierre Nkurunziza and the rebel movement that has clearly indicated that it will go to war if the third term continues.
I want to ask you about that exactly. If Nkurunziza wins this election, flawed or not, do you expect the country to descend back into full-out civil war? And how will, if that happens, how will that play out in the entire Great Lakes region?
Well, I think the conditions for a conflict are already there. At the time that we are talking, only one leader from the opposition, the leader of UPRONA, has agreed to contest the elections. 7 other candidates have withdrawn, including some of the principal opposition leaders, such as Agathon Rwasa, who has been really key to the peace process in Burundi. So the conditions for conflict are there, and one can only hope that the East African community, through its mediation by President Museveni, can possibly salvage something. I don't see a government of national unity working because it will basically serve as a basis to legitimize the leadership of Pierre Nkurunziza, and I think that's really the challenge that is facing that East African nation, and the consequences for the region can only be ghastly as well. Because as we are talking now, there's a humanitarian crisis in Tanzania with over 100,000 refugees from Burundi getting into the neighboring countries.
What about countries like the DRC, who on the eastern border anyhow always have been in conflict with rebel movements? Surely this will further that cause, and do you expect more rebel groups to be popping up within that almost disputed border areas?
Well, the potential for that is there, but I do think that for now, as it stands, the crisis is very much national, but with potential humanitarian challenge for the neighboring countries. I don't see rebel groups regrouping in neighboring DRC as a result of the political situation in Burundi. Certainly, they might be used. Neighboring countries could potentially be used as bases because, as we know, Agathon Rwasa operated for a very long time from Tanzania, and so it's really a scary scenario, especially for a country that emerged about 10 years ago out of a very brutal civil war which pitted the Hutus against the Tutsis. And what is a bit worrying is the fact that Pierre Nkurunziza himself is both a Hutu and a Tutsi. So it's a situation that we should really monitor quite closely.
You don't expect this to descend into the kind of tribal conflicts that we've seen, and then in conclusion, can you maybe give us an idea what you think the international community and the African Union should be putting in place to avert the kind of escalating violence?
Well, I don't see it descending into an ethnic conflict as the one that we saw prior, because the contestation right now is very political. I think it's a democratic contestation on the part of the opposition leaders, but unfortunately there has been violence with over 100 people dead so far. In terms of what the African Union should do, unfortunately the AU does not have solid mechanism to deal with this type of nature. Article 8 of the AU Constitutive Act, which could have been activated in this type of cases, only deals with the unconstitutional overthrow of elected government by military officers or illegitimate forces. So it does not really have some mechanism to deal with this hot potato. So what the strategy of Pierre Nkurunziza has been to get an election going, irrespective of how flawed it is, but to a certain degree there's also a bit of UN monitoring taking place. So that he's trying to legitimize his rule, and then the African Union will be dealing with a situation that is sort of a fait accompli for us to see how the other forces of the opposition can be included in a potential government of national unity. I think, as it stands now, I'm not too sure if sanctions can assist much, because even with the threat of sanctions, Pierre Nkurunziza has been resolute in proceeding with what is clearly a flawed election.
Well, I thank you for joining us today. Senior Research on Foreign Policy from the South African Institute of International Affairs, Dr. Jerumo Hengari. Thank you once again for joining us. Unique insights into the escalating situation in Burundi. Let's take a look at the pick of the day. It comes from UNICEF, captioned, hashtag, a Burundi girl waits and guards her family's belongings while they queue for registration in Tanzania. Of course, you just heard Dr. Hengari talk about more than 100,000 refugees already have moved into Tanzania, and that humanitarian crisis itself is escalating. Now, another one from Burundi, of course, this one from Unati Grootboom, and it's a live tweet that's come in with regards to this at SABC Newsroom. I don't think they must go ahead with the elections. You can't hold elections while there is gunfire happening. And Unati, there also the occasional bomb going off in the capital. I think that's Unati just sent us that tweet. Doesn't think the election should go ahead. What do you think? We're asking you, should these elections go ahead? Should it have started at all at 6 in the morning? There's the question. Of course, we'll put it up like we've done Unati's one. Send it in live, and we'll try and get your response on as soon as possible. Now, the tweet of the day. This one comes from. This one says, another Burundi says, wisdom requires that a person will make the optimal decision in a particular situation, a decision that leads to a course of action that will maximize the greatest good for the greatest number. Now that's a wonderful tweet, I think, because the president, Nkurunziza, should think about this. Is it for the greater good that he is working, or is it for the good of himself and his compatriots, supporters? Let's take a look at the front pages from around the globe. Now we start in the United Kingdom. The Guardian there reports that more than 330,000 children from low-income families in England will be hit by Conservative plans to reduce the benefit cap. The government's own impact assessment has concluded that. Note, they don't even mention the Burundian election. Shows you the priorities. Times in Europe says, a comedian disrupted a news conference by Sepp Blatter yesterday when he threw a handful of what appeared to be fake money bills over the FIFA president. There you have a lovely picture of all the notes, of course, flying above Sepp Blatter's head. Then, USA Today says, throngs of demonstrators gathered yesterday to witness the raising of the Cuban flag over Cuba's embassy. The first time it has flown there since the U.S. broke off diplomatic relations with the communist country. It is now 54 years ago. Time for a quick look at what's happening around our country here in South Africa. Yeah, in Johannesburg is where we start. The Gauteng Department of Education will officially launch the rollout of its technology-enabled teaching and learning program to matric learners. Then, in the capital, Pretoria, the Water and Sanitation Department will be launching the National Integrated Water Information System project. And down south in Cape Town, the alleged Sensory City serial killer, Kangai Sedumedi, is expected to appear in the Goodwood Magistrates Court. He's been charged with 3 counts of murder and 2 counts of rape in a case that's got the city there setting up and taking notice all around the Kensington area on the Cape Flats. Time for us to take a short little break. Don't forget to answer our question. Should the Burundian elections have gone ahead today? What do you think? At SABC Newsroom, that's where you can give us your live tweets. We'll flick it up if it's not profane and any good. Time for us to take a break now.
Several thousand migrants are adrift in boats in Southeast Asian seas.
The refugees have been abandoned at sea by human smugglers with little food and water.
The UN has appealed to the governments of Thailand, Indonesia and Malaysia to act quickly to avert a massive humanitarian crisis.
Leaders will meet in Dar es Salaam on Wednesday to discuss the political crisis in Burundi.
At least 19 people have been killed and more than 200 wounded during violent protests against President Nkurunziza's bid for a 3rd term.
Primetime News, daily at 6 p.m.
Welcome back. Yesterday, U.S. President Barack Obama hosted the recently elected president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, at the White House. The 4-day trip is Buhari's first to Washington since taking office in May, in a peaceful transition of power in Nigeria. One of the issues that topped the agenda of the meeting with President Obama was the threat posed by Boko Haram militants in the West African country. Now, to give us an update on the discussions that will help, well, we've been battling to get Skype up this morning, so we're going to go on the phone to Abuja, where Nigerian journalist Peter Masham joins us. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Eben. Good morning, South Africa.
Buhari met with Obama, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden. Can we see this as a new step for Nigeria in strengthening their ties with the U.S.?
It has to be because it's, the delegation that received President Buhari is at the very top. Since his election, President Buhari has sort of become like a new bride that everybody is trying to woo. Because he carries with him, that's so much integrity. And so Nigeria is happy because we are going to leverage on this so that we can get the best and the very best benefits we can get. Now you can see that he's spending 4 days. He has been received and kept at the Blair House, which is the very first time a Nigerian leader will be received as a guest in Washington. And he has had, he's going to have several talks, especially, as you said, in terms of security, in terms of assistance in other investments in Nigeria. So this is really a big deal for us here in Nigeria because we know that in the coming days and in the coming months, we'll be able to get assistance from America and from major countries, especially in the fight against Boko Haram and other counterterrorism measures.
Do you expect the fight with the help of America now to be really stepped up against Boko Haram, especially in the northeast?
Yes, definitely. Then we expect that the fight against Boko Haram will be stepped up. It's also a strong message to the terrorists that Nigeria is not fighting this battle alone. We have the backing now of America. We have the backing of major European countries. We have the backing of African countries, especially Chad and Niger, probably Cameroon. And so it's a message to Boko Haram that this is not just a fight, against Nigeria. The whole world is against them, and very soon the minds of the whole world, not only Nigeria, will come on them and will crush them definitely. So this visit is actually a message sending straight to Boko Haram and telling them that Nigeria is very serious and we're about to crush them.
Peter, let's talk about the economy quickly. We know that Nigeria have really suffered because of the drop in oil prices we've seen in recent times. Do you expect lots of new economic opportunities to come on the horizon for the Nigerian economy because of this meeting?
Yeah, part of the visit is to talk about bilateral trade. And so we expect that a lot of investment from America will come to Nigeria right now. Like you rightly said, oil has not been doing very well. But let's see this in Nigeria as an opportunity to diversify to other sectors of the economy. Over the past decades, we have relied heavily on oil, and we've left out other sectors without really much investment. So a lot of us in Nigeria begin to say, this is not really a cost. We shouldn't be worried. We should see this oil price drop as an opportunity in Nigeria so that we can go into other sectors like agriculture, like tourism, like solid minerals. So I believe that if he's going to America now, he should talk to investors in other sectors. Not minded bringing other the oil majors, but we need to diversify right now in Nigeria. This is just the opportunity we have in Nigeria to say, look, this oil is not going to get us anywhere. We need to look at other sectors so that we can be able to leave our dependence on oil and be able to focus on other sectors. And by that, we're opening up our economy.
Peter, quickly, we heard that President Buhari is supposed to hold town hall meetings with Nigerians. Do you have any information on that?
The Nigerians in the diaspora, I'm also hearing about that. But I think it would be good to be able to speak to Nigerians here in America because you're supposed to assure them. Because a lot of the Nigerians that are there will not probably want to come back to Nigeria because they have this past memories of how Nigeria was. But if he has a meeting with them and he can be able to assure them, I'm sure a lot of them will want to come back and to be able to come and contribute their quota here in Nigeria. So the meeting with the Nigerian community in America is really important, and I hope that he can find time within his busy schedule to squeeze that so that he can be able to talk to them and get even more ideas. There are people that can give him new ideas once he has that meeting. And so that he can be able to come to implement it in Nigeria. So a meeting with them will be very vital, and I hope it goes through today.
Thank you very much, Peter. That's Peter Masham, a Nigerian journalist, giving us a quick update about Muhammadu Buhari's visit to the U.S. Of course, he met with President Barack Obama yesterday. Yesterday, it wasn't such good news for South Africa, if you're a golfer. Louis Oosthuizen lost in a playoff, so near and yet so far. He lost by a single shot in a four-hole playoff against American Zach Johnson, who claimed the second major of his career after winning the playoff at St Andrews. It ended a day of captivating golf with Louis Oosthuizen really showing a lot of bottle under pressure, but it was not to be. Here's your views. This is what Sean Pillay says. Really enjoyed the final round and playoff of the Open. Just something special when it's played at St Andrews. Our boy Louis Oosthuizen, well done. Yeah. West Yorkshire Sports says Zach Johnson has won the Open Championship after the three-way playoff against Mark Leishman and Louis Oosthuizen at St Andrews. And Zaniga says another kind of slam. South Africa's Louis Oosthuizen closing in second place in every major. Yes, second place. First loser is what Tiger Woods called it. The Open Championship will go to a four-hole playoff between Zach Johnson. Okay, that's old. Zach Johnson won the playoff. Thank you very much. Now, to give you a little update quickly, the cricket has just on answer. South Africa has just lost another wicket. I think Dean Elgar's out, 136 for 2 it is. Of course, winning the toss there and batting first. It should be an interesting day's cricket. We'll keep you updated on this channel how that match developed. And hopefully we'll be able to get an interview or something for tomorrow. But let's go to our Newsroom Facebook page to have a look what you can get there. Of course, if you look, that Police Minister Nadia Nhleko will brief Parliament's ADA Committee on Nkandla at the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Legislature in Pietermaritzburg today. It will be followed by a site visit by the committee to the President's private residence tomorrow. Then, of course, Burundi's opposition has urged voters to follow their lead and boycott the presidential election scheduled for today, saying the vote will deepen political deadlock in a nation with a long history of political violence and ethnic strife. And Cuba's foreign minister has told his United States counterpart that despite profound differences that remain between the two countries, they still cooperate and coexist in a civilized way. More news, of course, on Facebook. That's our Facebook page there. In the search bar, SABC Newsroom. Time to take a short break. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
My people, we are getting there, and thanks to you, Pati is set to become our country's 12th official language. Here's today's word. Substitute. Replacing a drinking buddy with somebody more fun. That's more like it.
Help make Pati South Africa's 12th official language. Sign the petition today.
I've got a credit card.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. In Burundi, voting has started in the controversial election in which President Pierre Nkurunziza is seeking a third term. This despite explosions and gunfire heard overnight in the capital, Bujumbura. Reports suggest that at least 2 people have died in the recent pre-election violence. Back home, Police Minister Nadia Nhleko will brief Parliament's ad hoc committee on Nkandla at the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Legislature in Pietermaritzburg today. This will be followed by a site visit conducted by the committee to the President's private residence tomorrow. The Nkandla ad hoc committee was established to consider the Nhleko report, which found that President Zuma is not liable to pay back any money used on non-security upgrades at his home. And the Proteas won the toss and elected to bat first on the first day of their test against Bangladesh in Chittagong. The score there currently is 136 for 3. Well, remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just search for Newsroom. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Eben, back to you.
Thanks, Annie. Now, some of the largest and most successful exhibition organisers in South Africa have made the bold move of partnering to form the Association of African Exhibition Organisers. The eventing and exhibition industry has the potential to make a powerful contribution to the African and South African economy, but is in a state of flux due to local and global economic uncertainty. For this reason, AXO will be launched by January 2016, and here to tell us more is the Managing Director of Specialised Exhibitions, Gary Corrin. Very good morning to you, Gary. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Evan.
Well, uncertainty, austerity, all these words it really is hard for any businessman, isn't it? But tell us about this move and how do you see the economic benefits for the region first, one would think, and then throughout the rest of the continent?
I think it's worthwhile just mentioning, firstly, the impact that exhibitions and conferencing have on local economies. The medium itself is a powerful platform to introduce different businesses to each other and to really stimulate trade. And with that as a backdrop, I think an association, an industry association that represents those specific interests is absolutely crucial and has a significant role to play. We're finding that the South Africa and the African continent as a whole is attracting a lot of foreign investment. There's a lot of growth opportunity. And exhibitions as a medium are an increasingly positive and useful platform to do that. But having said that, I think regulations, disciplines, and best practices in our sector is crucial. And I think that is a driver for the association and the formulation of an African association that represents organising interests.
We always read that 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world are on the African continent. I want to ask you about that and how you see that linked together, but more importantly, exhibitions for what they are. Is it a sign of economic prosperity in a country or in a region if the big exhibitions are there because there is the kind of capital to be had on it?
I think prosperity is maybe a little bit misleading. I think trade and the stimulation of trade and unlocking opportunities is more appropriate. At the end of the day, exhibitions have been around for over 2,000 years. It's a face-to-face medium, a little bit like our conversation today. And it affords different people opportunities to bring their products, services, technologies to life in a face-to-face engaging environment.
Now, I see that AXO, what you guys are launching, you're going to be doing market research as well, which I think is quite interesting. How are you going to do this kind of market research, and how is it going to help business?
Well, to start with, AXO is a combination or a collective of competing interests, really. Different organisers put aside their competitive nature and are collectively pulling together to gather in industry information. We want to be able to articulate the size and scope of the industry that we represent. There are a lot of foreign statistics. For every dollar that is spent on exhibition space, $7 to $10 gets fed into the local economy. We want to be able to quantify that and really put our medium at the forefront of usage for professional marketers.
When will AXO be fully functional and where can people get more information?
Well, AXO is already beyond its formative stages. All those companies in the South African landscape, Specialised Exhibitions, Tebbe Reid, Messe Munich International, just to mention a few. There are hosts of them. Really reputable exhibition organisers have already got together and are talking about a whole host of principles. So that activity is already in place, but the association itself will be fully fledged, up and running come 1 January 2016.
Just quickly before we wrap, I want to bring it back to South Africa and talk about South Africa quickly. How do we always see lots of exhibitions going on in South Africa. Is it really doing that well financially? And also, how do we maintain profitability going forward?
I think there's an onus of responsibility on South African marketers. There are a number of very reputable events in a host of different industry sectors in South Africa. Marketers need to understand the exhibition medium. They need to apply it appropriately. And if they do, a lot of these exhibitions have been servicing our country for decades. And that's how you grow industry sectors. That's how you support industry sectors, by being responsible in terms of how you participate, who you partner with, and really focusing on the well-being of that sector, not just your individual interests as a business.
Well, Gary Corrin, the Director of Specialised Exhibition, Managing Director, that is, a Specialised Exhibition, launching AXO, which is, of course, an association of African exhibition organisers. Should be very interesting, and we'll keep an eye on it. Thank you for joining us, Gary. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Of course, just want to give you a quick score update. 139 now for the loss of 3 wickets. We've just lost another wicket. I can tell you Hashim Amla is in, the banker's in, and with him is on debut Themba Bavuma. People have asked for him to get an opportunity. I can see that is in. Let's hope that Themba Bavuma can get a couple of runs on the board. Of course, we've asked you the question a little bit earlier, should Burundi's election have gone ahead today? What are your views? Let's take a look at some of the tweets that have been coming on. Is it Ans Raymond says, oh no, we're talking about South Africa. They will keep on batting like this, may the whole day if they keep wickets. Yes, Isaac Katak says, South Africa beaten Bangladesh in all 8 tests between the two, 7 times by an innings margin. No test has gone into the 5th day. Well, it's going to be tougher because if you take a look at the wickets there, well, the wickets are not the very best, are they? Not really made for exciting cricket. You can hardly play straight. Song says, it was bound to happen. You just can't keep blocking the ball all day. Yes, you can't. We've lost a couple of wickets now. 2 wickets have fallen very, very quickly. Themba Bavuma is in and is batting with Hashim Amla. Now, motorsport in South Africa has been given a timely boost, with manufacturer KTM starting a junior division here in this country. The aim, well, is to prepare young riders for the step up to 600s and even superbikes. This division is to unearth the next international star, like the Lance Isaacs that we've seen who raced for Italian giants Ducati. I'm joined today by Dave Griffin, team owner, and Lance Marais, who's one of the riders of the future. Morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning. Are all great motorbike riders called Lance?
I guess so.
Quickly, if I can ask you, Dave, about KTM's involvement, decision to launch this series. It's a wonderful boost for motor racing or bike racing in South Africa, isn't it?
Certainly is, Evan. Yes, thank you. The series was initially launched in Europe through the ADAC Racing Series, and we've taken a page from their book to bring it locally, obviously on a more budget-based series, and the primary focus being a one-make series, all standard bikes, completely standard bikes, so the bikes you see out on the track are literally road-going bikes.
Lance, there are a lot of trophies here, my friend. Tell me, what's going on here?
Well, these are just some of the trophies that mean more to me than the others.
Mm-hmm.
So this was my first Super GP podium trophy.
Yeah.
This one was my 250 championship in the short circuit racing.
Yeah.
This one was my NSF 100 championship trophy in 2013.
Now you're going to get an opportunity to ride in this new format. You must be looking forward to it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity. What does it mean?
Well, it's always been a passion for me, coming from my dad's side's family, always being bikers and stuff. And I just wanted to go further than just riding a motorbike. I just took the passion into putting it on the track and see what it's
That's what all our youngsters should do, man, is get off the streets, stop the street racing, burning rubber in our communities, and do it on the track, because I think we've got a lot of talent, don't we?
We certainly do, and the racing formula, it's a discipline that you've seen in no other sport. They can't be out partying, they can't be out clubbing. They need to be dedicated to their sport, they need to be practicing, they need to be hardcore athletes in the gym, eating correctly and doing the best they can out on the course.
Yeah, you see that with the greatest races today, Formula One drivers. A guy like Fernando Alonso can probably ride the Tour de France. He's that fit. I wanted to ask you, though, about motorcycle racing in South Africa in general, and then motorsport in general. We always hear about the demise and how there's not enough support and how the sport has gone backwards over the last decade. How do you view this, and how does what's happened now, how does it tie in with the overall picture?
Certainly it's a big concern for us. Over the years we've seen less and less motorsport events taking place. We've seen paternity split and take it from a national level more to a regional level. Obviously what we're trying to do is encourage juniors of any age between the ages of sort of 13 and 17 to come and enjoy it. It's a budget-based racing series to the point that as the bike comes from the showroom, so you race it. That then says it's not checkbook racing anymore. So it no longer becomes a cost-driven issue. Aside from that, we also start to draw more sponsors on board because the juniors are our future. As it stands now, we all grew up on 50s and 125s. I don't think the kids are riding those bikes today. So where else can they get to have the pleasure of motorsport other than on a track where it's safe?
Yeah, absolutely. And the event this weekend, tell us a little bit about this. I understand it's kicking off this weekend, isn't it?
We're having our fourth or fifth race this weekend, I think it is, in East London. You know, we've just been so blessed with the turnout we've had. The kids that have joined us, the series started late in the season, and we hope to have 9 to 10 riders out this weekend.
And Lance, your hopes for the future? This is a stepping stone. Where do you want to end up?
Hopefully, world champion in MotoGP. But short term, next year, 600 in nationals.
Fantastic. That's what we want to hear. Swing for the fence. If you're going to go big, man. Don't go, oh, I'm just happy to be here to be competing. You know, we gotta understand, you know, to be a winner, you gotta try and win at everything, isn't that so? When you play with your sister, you gotta want to win, isn't it?
Apply yourself 100% at all you do.
Well, David and Lance, thanks guys, thanks for joining us today, and all the best with the series. I'm certainly very happy that a big manufacturer is now stepping into the breach and is going to help develop young riders into the future. Thanks for joining us, and all the best, as I say, with the series.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, that's where we wrap it today. Just a quick one. South Africa 141 for 3. As I said, Hashim Amla and Temba Bavuma are batting now. Let's hope they can put together a partnership, because the wicket that they're on, well, it doesn't look too good. I don't think it'll last 3-4 days. Newsroom is broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. We also stream live on YouTube at that time, with the whole show available on demand on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.